What's up, KDBats, and welcome back to the channel. My name is Priscilla. I'm an Nigerian women's wear designer based in the UK, and this video is going to be for a cargo pants tutorial. I share how to make the sewing patterns working from my basic trouser block. This I have as a PDF product on my shop. I'm going to leave the link down below, and it goes from a UK size 6 to 16, I believe. So I worked from that to develop the front pattern, back pattern, the pockets, the waistband, and all the amazing details that really make a cargo pant really iconic. So if you'd like to see how I made this, make sure to keep on watching. I showed how to make the patterns, how to cut, stitch everything together, and then I showed the finished product at the end, so you guys are able to follow along and recreate this for yourself. So I have added chapters to this video so that way you're able to kind of like pace yourself so you don't feel overwhelmed if you are aiming to recreate this project for yourself. Now I have a very special surprise for you guys, and I thought it would be something to do for Valentine's this year. On the 14th of February, I'm going to be giving away a brand new Brother LS14 sewing machine. If you have watched me long enough, you know that machine is a machine that I used for at least 3 to 4 years on my channel. I have made so many memories with that machine. We've made jackets, we've made jumpsuits, we've made coats, we've made amazing dresses. I've actually made 2 full collections with that machine. It's a tabletop domestic machine, but it's capable of so much. So I thought it would be amazing to share that experience with one of you. And to enter, what you need to do is, of course, be subscribed to the Kim Dave channel and give this video a thumbs up, and then I would love for you guys to leave a comment down below of what you would like to see on the channel in this new year 2023. And then the final entry point would be that you need to share this video on social media. So it can be Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, Twitter, whatever social media platform that you use, and then share a screenshot that you shared it via the Google link down below. You just need to upload that screenshot, and then if you collected all the points for the entry, you will be entered for the giveaway. The winner will be announced on the 14th of February on my YouTube community page, so keep your eyes peeled for that. Now, without further ado, let's get into this cargo pants tutorial. If you have any other questions, please share them in the comment section as well, and let's get straight into the video. The fabric of choice I'm going to be using to make this pair of cargo pants is this cotton nylon blend. I have 2 meters of this. I also got myself a short zip to fix on the front of the pants, so that's how I'm able to get in and out of it. To go around the waistband, I have a set of silver metal buttons. And then I also got interfacing to help me stiffen up the waistband of the pants, so that way they are really nice and structured and sit beautifully around the waist. This is the type that has glue on one side, and then you iron it on the wrong side, and then it sticks on the fabric. As I mentioned earlier on, I'm going to be working from my PDF trouser pattern, and this is the front and the back. This is the one from my Kim Dave shop that goes from a UK size 6 to 20 actually, so there are quite a few sizes on this pattern. I'm going to be working with the size 12 because I want the pattern to have a really relaxed fit around my legs, my knees, and my ankles. But you can go to the size chart to choose a size that works for your size, or maybe for the design that you have in mind. Now I'm going to trace off the size I want, so I keep the plan the way it is. That way I'm able to use it again in the future. So I've layered some paper on top, and this is this translucent paper that I use. I get this from Amazon, and I find it amazing to create patterns because you can kind of see what's going on underneath. So I'm going to trace off the dart, the front edge, the waistline, the top edge of that side seam like so, but I'm going to be changing up the width or the fit around the legs because I want it to be really nice and loose there. Now I'm just going in here to double check that the around thigh measurement is what I want. Mine was 26 inches, so I'm marking half of that. So the distance from the outer to the inner trouser leg, especially around this like thigh area, is at least 13 inches. So once I made that change on the inseam, I'm going in here to draw in the new inner leg curve for my trouser. And then the shape is just essentially straight from that point all the way to the hem. So the silhouette of the trouser is on the baggy or the loose side. I'm going in here to add my grain line, so that guides me when I am cutting the pattern onto fabric, after which I'm marking my desired trouser length of 39 inches. So it's long enough to be worn with trainers or low heels, and it's not too short that you see my ankles. It's like a really sweet length for me. You know, I'm not a very tall girl, so I like my trousers to be a comfortable length. Now, this is what the pattern is looking like for the front. I'm just going in here to label it so I know what this is, or if I give it to someone else, they have an idea of what that is as well. Once I'm happy with my front pattern, I'm going to go ahead to trace off the back plan. The back, it will be the same as the plan along the waist, the crouch line, the side seam on the top edge, but it's going to be the same width as the front. So as a typical back pattern is, that waist is slightly elevated on the back, the dart is slightly shifted, and the crouch is a bit more outwards to accommodate, you know, your bum and your hips around the body. But that around knee and that hemline is the same. I've gone in also to add a 2 centimeter or roughly 1 inch hem allowance to the bottom of my trouser pattern. Now, coming back to the front plan, I'm going to go in to shape the waistline. Now, the plan is quite high on the waist, and I'm going to take away 2.5 inches from the waistline, so 2.5 inches downwards, and that is going to become my waistband. Once I have that marked across, I'm going to connect those dashed lines together so I have a clear line to guide me. Once I have that line drawn in, I'm going to be folding away the waist dart because I don't want my waistband to have a dart, but I want to keep the dart on the rest of the trouser pattern along the waist for the front and the back as well. I'm going to tape away this dart once it's folded in, and then I'm going to get another piece of pattern paper and trace off that area. So the top edge of that waistline, the side, and then the bottom green line that I drew earlier on, remembering to transfer the point where the fold is because that point would have a notch, and that is where I should join the waistband to the waistline of the pants. And I'm just going in here to connect points like so, add a seam allowance around all the edges except the center front edge, because I'm going to be extending that edge by 1.5 inch to accommodate the zip fly. This trouser has a fly on the front, which is when you have the zip there and you have a piece of fabric that kind of conceals it, and it's something that is common on jeans, on trouser, tailored pants, and it just has a very nice and beautiful finish. That's what we're going to be doing today. After extending it by that 1.5 inch, I added a seam allowance around that edge, adding my grain line and annotation just to know that that's what this pattern is. It's going to be my front waistband pattern, and I'll need to cut 2 pairs of this. With my paper scissors, I'm just going ahead to cut out this pattern like so, this one for my waistband, and this is what it looks like. Once I'm happy with that, I'm going to set it aside and then unfold the dart that we folded away because I want to keep that dart on the rest of my front pattern. Now I'm going to be dropping the dart by 2.5 inches, which was what we took away from the top anyways. I'm just going to be dropping it down like so, and then marking the width on top, which was roughly 1 centimeter or half an inch on both sides, and drawing in the new waist dart for the front pants. Once those points are connected together, this is what it should look like, and I'm just adding seam allowance around the waist before going in to add the zip fly. Along the center front edge, I'm going to be extending it outwards by 1.5 inches or roughly 4 centimeters. This was the same dimension that we added on the waistband as well. And this I'm going to be extending up until around where the hip line is. And I'm going to curve it back into the center front curve or crouch line. That is going to become the fly, and it's going to be connected to the front pattern, so it helps me conceal the zip on the front of the pants. Now I'm just going in here to add a 1 centimeter or roughly half an inch seam allowance around my entire pattern. This is going to ensure that when I cut out this pattern onto fabric, I have a little bit of material to actually stitch it together. You have the option to do this at this point, or just cut your pattern the way it is without seam allowance, and then you mark your seam allowance straight onto your fabric with chalk. Along the side, I am going to be adding side pockets. I think side pockets are so cool when they are incorporated into pants design, and this one is going to be about 3.5 inches inwards along the waistline like so. So that's going to be the opening, and then it's going to be about 6.5 inches or 17 centimeters deep. This I am connecting like this, so it has a curved shape. You can make yours more angular or more curved. Mine is like this design. Now the pocket bag depth is 12 inches. That is from the waistline downwards, and I'm drawing a line that goes across like this and goes into that 12-inch mark. I have a separate tutorial where I shared how to make this pattern, how to cut it and stitch it all together, so you can watch that again if you just need something to just like refresh your memory about how this particular pocket design works. But once I had the pocket bag marked and the pocket facing edge marked as well, I'm adding a 1 centimeter seam allowance along this curved edge, because we're going to be tracing off the pocket bag as a separate piece and the pocket facing as another piece. Now the pocket facing is going to be the one that goes in on this edge like so. So that is what you use to finish that edge of the pants on that side. You need to add seam allowance along the side, along the inner edge, and transfer your notches as well. I'm just going in here to label it and add my grain lines. That is the pocket facing pattern. The pocket bag itself is going to be the one that covers the entire side piece and sits underneath the pocket facing. So this is what the pocket bag pattern looks like. So it goes along the waistline, along the side, follows the same curve as the pocket facing, and this is the shape. So you need those two patterns to be able to make this side pocket design. As I mentioned earlier, and I'm going to link the pocket tutorial I've done on my channel down below, so that can be a nice little guide for you if you wanted to do so. So these are all of the front pattern pieces for my cargo pants. We have the waistband, the front with the zip fly, we have the pocket facing and the pocket bag as well. Once those are done, I can go ahead to focus on making my back patterns. For the back trouser or pants, like we did for the front, we're going to go into reshape the waistline, so we're able to create the waistband pieces. So I'm marking 2.5 inches below the original waistline, and once I have those dash line marked in place, I'm going to connect them together using my best friend, the pattern master, because I am totally obsessed with this tool. Once I have that waistline drawn in place, I'm going to fold away the dart, so I'm able to trace off the waistband pattern for the back, just like we did for the front. So this I've traced off, added my seam allowance, my notch, my grain line, and I'm going to cut out the back waistband pattern. This is going to be cut as 2 pairs, so that way you have a pair for each side and you have a clean finish on the top of the waist of the pants. Once that pattern is all done and cut out, this is what it looks like. I'm just going in here to double check the measurement and that it actually works and fits me, and everything is looking good so far. I'm just transferring my notch points where the dart is, so it guides me when I'm stitching everything together. Now I've gone ahead to unfold the folded away dart, and I'm extending it downwards by however much I took from the top, which is roughly 2.5 inches, and then I'm just drawing in the new dart that is about 1 inch wide along the waistline, so 1/2 inch on both sides, that I'm connecting back to the point like so. And once I have the fresh dart drawn in place, I am going to go ahead to add the seam allowance around the new waistline of the pants. So I'm going to add seam allowance there, around the center back edge, around the inner leg, around the side seam. However, the hem already has a 2 centimeter or roughly 1 inch hem allowance. So this is what the back pattern is looking like. I added a grain line as well and annotations to know where the crouch, the knee, and the hemline of the pants is. And I'm just going in here to cut out the pattern so I have it ready in place. The last set of patterns to be for the flap pocket, which sits on the side around the knee of the cargo pants, and I'm just going in here to draw a horizontal line like so, and my pocket is about 7 inches tall. This I'm marking upwards from the horizontal line that we drew earlier on, and I'm connecting the top edge of the pocket pattern like so. The pocket is 6 inches or roughly 15 centimeters wide, and this I want to have a pleat or a fold detail in the middle, so that adds a little bit of volume into the pocket when you put your hands in or if you put things inside. So I'm going to just draw a dash line to guide me so I know where to notch this piece onto fabric when I've cut it out, so I know where to like fold in on the pocket itself. Now you would fold inwards like so. You can fold yours outwards, but mine actually folded both edges in to meet where the dashed line is. So once I had this pocket design drawn in place, I went ahead to add a seam allowance around, and then 1 centimeter seam allowance on the sides and the bottom, and then 2 centimeters on the top, so I can fold it really nicely to lock it in place. So this is what my finished pocket would look like once it's been folded in, and it's such a cool design. Now I want the pocket to have a flap on top to kind of cover it. So that flap is going to be at least the same width as the pocket. So mine is 6 inches. I've seen designs where the pocket itself is a little bit wider, but in terms of height, it's about 4 inches tall. And this I'm marking upwards like so, and I'm going to connect together, draw in the shape. It's like a rectangular shape, and I'm going to be cutting this as one long piece, and then I'm going to fold it in half, turn it inside out, stitch it all the way around, and then put it on top of the pocket as the flap. I'm going to go in with my paper scissors and cut out this piece like so, which is the flap or the top edge of my side pocket. And these are the last set of patterns that I would need to make for this cargo pants design. It has quite a bit of pattern pieces, but everything kind of connects to the other, and I think it makes the design a lot more interesting. I've seen cargo pants that actually have multiple pockets around the knee, so one lower to the bottom, one higher up, but mine is just going to have a pair sitting around the sides, and then the top side pockets that have the curved edge. With all of my patterns on, I'm going to be using them to cut my fabric, and 2 meters of fabric was actually the perfect amount I needed for this pants. So I'm going in here to cut out the area around the side of the front. I'm going to cut out my back pieces. I'm going to cut out the pocket pieces, the waistband pieces, have everything prepped and ready to be stitched together. Please don't forget to cut your notches because they make the whole construction process a lot smoother and a lot less confusing. Now, the one thing I did off camera was I actually went into my waistband pieces and I fused them. And what I mean by that is I ironed on interfacing on the wrong side of the fabric, so it adds a little bit of body and weight to the waistband pieces. Because we have 2 pairs for the front and 2 pairs for the back, I literally fused everything because I wanted the waistband to really have a really nice structure and sit nice and smooth around the waistline of the pants. Before I start sewing, I'm going to overlock the pieces around the edges, especially the front edges, the inner and the outer leg, around some parts of the back and the pockets as well, because it's going to make the construction process flow by a lot smoother. Now I've gone ahead to mark with chalk the line that we extended the center front by, because that's going to guide us when we're sewing the fly. Now I'm sewing this bottom curved area of the front crouch with right sides facing each other with a normal stitch, and when I reach the bottom edge of how much we extended the front by, I'm going to switch to the loosest stitch my machine has, because we're going to be unpicking that stitch later on. Off camera, I went ahead to press that seam open, and I'm grabbing my zip, which I'm going to be putting as close as possible to that stitch line, and I'm going to be sewing this side to the right side of the fly. So I'm just sewing to the fly itself and not to the front of the pants. Now I'm using my zip footer to ensure that I sew as close as possible to the zip teeth, and once I stitch it in this direction, I'm going to take it back to the machine and top stitch it in such a way that I'm sewing on the right side of the zip against the right side of the zip fly. This is going to prevent the zip from getting caught when I wear this piece over time. This is what the zip is looking like so far, and I'm going to be folding it towards the left side of the fly like so, and then I'm going to be sewing the other side of the zip to the other side of the fly. This I'm going to be sewing to just that fly extension itself, not to the left side of the pants, and that is going to ensure that the zip is attached to the fly extension and is concealed behind it. So far so good, everything is looking really nice and lovely, and I'm going to turn this to the right side of the material, and I'm going to be sewing a stitch that goes straight from the waistline and then curves back into the center front crouch seam. Now the point where it curves into is around the point where we curved it back, which is like the hip area, and this I'm going to be sewing on the right side of the fabric. I'm using a contrasting stitch or contrasting thread because I just thought it was a cool detail to use. You can use a matching one if you don't want to be scared like I was here, because any error at this point to be very visible. If the stitch is not clear, if it's not smooth, it would look very visible because the thread is contrasting to the fabric. But it's something I wanted to do, and I thought it really came out nice. So this stitch I'm going to be curving back into the center front seam that we made earlier on, and the point at which I curved it into is around the hip line. So this is what the front of my trouser is looking like. When I was stitching it down, I stitched it on that side alone, and when I curved it back in, I folded both sides of the fly against each other so they are cut around the bottom of this piece on the wrong side. I've just gone ahead to open up that basting stitch or the loose stitch that we did earlier on, and this is what the fly of the pants came out to look like. Really cool. I'm loving it so far. Moving on to the front side pockets, I'm going to be stitching the pocket facing first along these curved edges on the front of the pants, and I've put right sides together. This I'm going to sew on a 1 centimeter seam allowance first, and then I actually went back in to do an edge stitch that joins the seam allowance to the inner edge so that locks it inside. That step is optional, but I like doing that when I do this pocket style. And then I'm going to go ahead to join the pocket bag to the facing along that inner edge. So that's the only points that we are stitching it together. And this I'm sewing on a 1 centimeter seam allowance around this curved edge like so. So that sort of completes the waist area of the pocket and you don't have a hole showing, and it acts or creates the pocket bag itself. Now this is what the front of the pants is looking like. It's coming together really beautifully, and this I am going to set aside to work on the back patterns. For the back, the first thing I'm going to do is just join the crouch line. So I've put right sides together. The back I've already overlocked so I don't have to think about finishing it on the inside once I've joined everything together. The back I have stitched up in place and pressed my seam open, and I'm going to be joining the back to the front along the outer leg so that way I have the base ready for that flap pocket to be stitched in. With right sides facing each other, I'm going to be joining the front to the back along this outer seam. This I'm going to be sewing on a 1 centimeter seam allowance, press that seam open, and this is what the pants are looking like. Leaving the inner leg open will make it a lot easier to actually stitch the flap pocket in place. But before I sew that in, I'm going to just finish the pocket a little bit more around the edges. I'm going to be folding and sewing the edges of the main pocket itself, and then I'm going to be sewing the flap, turn it inside out, and then top stitch the edges nice and tidy. I also went ahead to press in the folds that the pocket has in the middle so it's ready to be stitched to the side of the pants. So this I'm going to do for both sets, so the pockets itself and then the flap, and then I'll have 2 sets like this. You can fold your pleat in like I've done mine or fold it outwards. It's really up to you. The pocket I'm going to be sewing roughly 11 inches below the bottom edge of that side pocket. I found this to be a little bit low for me, so you can make yours even higher. You can make yours around the thigh or even lower on the leg. It's a design preference thing. So this I'm going to be stitching on one side at a time. So I'm going to sew around the pocket and then sew the flap above the pocket in such a way that I'm able to open it and put my hands in. So I'm going to be sewing around the pocket along the edge, but because we already had that seam that we made when we were folding and hemming the pocket, it kind of gives it the illusion that you stitch this piece twice, even though you just once. That we're going to stitch around this thing. You do want to leave the top edge open so that way you're able to get in and out of the pocket itself. Once that is done, I'm going to put the flap over it like so and leave a little bit of room so you don't stitch the pocket closed accidentally as you are trying to stitch in that flap. This I'm going to be sewing a little bit lower below the first stitch that we did, and I'm going to repeat the same thing on the other side of the pants. Now this is what the pocket looks like. You have the option of adding buttons, studs, whatever kind of design feature you want to add. I just left mine like this because it kind of stayed down and wasn't moving around like crazy. Once I was done with the pocket, I'm going to go in to join the inner leg or the inseam of the trouser. This I'm going to start from one side, stitch all the way to the middle point, and then stitch down to the other side on a 1 centimeter seam allowance. Next up is working on the waistbands. The waistbands I have assembled in such a way that I'm going to be joining the side seams first. So the side seam of the front to the side seam of the back. So I end up with 2 waistband connected together, and then I can join them in place. So I'm going to be sewing them on the sides on a 1 centimeter seam allowance. I'm also going to be joining the center back edge, so I have one connected piece of the front to the back pieces like this. I'm going to go ahead to press those seams nice and flat, have them open before putting right sides together, and then sewing up the front edge around the waistline and down to the other front edge, so you have a really beautifully finished waistband to add to your pants. Off camera, I've also gone ahead to fold in the bottom edge by the exact seam allowance I know I want to stitch the waistband into the trouser or the pants. Doing this just takes away the guessing game of if I'm stitching enough seam allowance or not. It just makes it a lot easier to do. Before I sew in the waistband, I'm just going in here to fold in the darts. You can stitch your darts in if you don't want to fold it like I'm doing here. I found that actually by folding it, there was a very funny bagginess or volume that it had in the front that I wasn't a fan of. I didn't mind it as much, but if you don't want that, I would highly recommend that you actually sew away your darts and have that tucked away on the inside if you don't like the bulkiness of the volume happening on the front from having a fold. For the waistband itself, I'm going to sew it in 2 steps. So I'm going to sew one time, joining the waistline like this on the 1 centimeter folded seam allowance that I did when I pressed everything nicely. And then once I was done stitching it like that, I'm going to go back in and then use the other edge that has been folded to finish off the waistband. I did this in an order that was actually funny, because now I'm stitching on the right side, but the fold is on the wrong side. So if you do it in the reverse order, that way you're able to clearly see where you are stitching and you know what the stitch looks like on the other side. Thankfully, it turned out really nice. This is what the waistband, the fly, and the pocket is looking like so far. I'm going to go in to finish off the hemline of the pants afterwards, and for this I'm going to overlock around the hem first. So it's a case of folding and then sewing it to finish it. Because I only added 2 centimeters or roughly 1 inch hem allowance, I knew I didn't have a lot of leeway to fold in. You have the option of folding yours a lot wider or folding it twice. It's up to you and based on how you made your pattern as well. What I did for the left leg, I did on the right as well. And the final step to finish this cargo pants is to add your buttons. Thankfully, my domestic machine has a buttonhole setting, so I don't have to pay anybody money to do my buttonholes. I can do it myself. And I've measured the size of my button and I've marked it on my waistband with the chalk. And I'm putting the buttonholes on this side of the waistband that has the extension. 2 buttonholes in total, and then once I'm done with that, I'm going to go ahead to stitch the buttons on the other side of the front waistband. After giving my piece a nice press, this is what it looks like. I just styled it with a simple crop top and I love how comfortable it feels. Oh my gosh, it is comfy in the right places. I also like how cool it feels with the pockets on the side and the overall fit of the pants. I hope you guys enjoyed watching this project. If you did, do give this video a thumbs up. Don't forget to enter the giveaway in the comment section down below. Check out the video description for any more tips, measurements, and links to helpful videos. And if you do recreate this on social media, please tag me on social media at KimDaveDesigns. And until next time, have a good morning, afternoon, and evening wherever you are. Bye.